Welcome to CNN News 18's coverage of the Republican National Convention taking place this week. To give us his take on the drama unfolding around the US elections, we are joined by Michael Starr Hopkins. Michael is a communications expert. He has worked on the presidential campaigns of Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and John Delaney. Michael, thanks so much for making the time for us.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Michael, it's day three of the convention. The focus today is on Trump's foreign policy. Now, Trump's vice presidential pick, that's J.D. Vance, has made some very strong statements on Ukraine. In his role, for example, as senator, he has led a fierce battle in the Senate to stop military aid to Ukraine. Vance also has been quoted as saying, here, it's a quote, I've got to be honest with you, I don't really care about what happens to Ukraine one way or the other. Many in the US might actually agree with him that Ukraine is not America's problem. What would you say?
Well, Ukraine is absolutely America's problem because Russia is America's problem. And as Russia continues to invade Ukraine, it furthers its empire. And what we don't want to do is allow Vladimir Putin the opportunity to expand. And so when J.D. Vance says things like that, it shows that he's not ready for the national stage or the international stage. And one of the real problems with a ticket of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance is that with Donald Trump, everything is for sale, including our foreign policy. And when you have someone like J.D. Vance who so grossly misunderstands how foreign policy works and how we support our allies, it's a dangerous combination.
Do you think there's an element of just playing to the masses, that he's got the job now, he's going to step back on the rhetoric and actually think carefully with a more sort of balanced view?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there is a bit of playing coy, playing stupid. The idea that the U.S. is just going to unilaterally withdraw from Ukraine would be a disaster. And I think whether you're Republican or Democrat, you would agree with that. But I do think that there is some calculations here in terms of interest outside of, let's say, American interests. Donald Trump has repeatedly talked about his foreign ties in terms of profit making with countries like Russia and with countries like Saudi Arabia. And so, you always have to look at Donald Trump not just through a geopolitical lens and a political lens, but also through a pecuniary and a capitalist lens.
Michael, J.D. Vance speaks tonight. Now, he's seen as the MAGA heir in waiting, if you like. People close to Trump saying that J.D. Vance has been seen by Trump as someone who will take over the Republican Party beyond Trump. That is something that Trump perhaps really didn't seriously think about when he picked Mike Pence as his vice president. So my question to you is, Trump versus Vance, who is better for the Republican Party in the long run? And you're not allowed to say neither.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I think the Republican Party loses with both of them in it. J.D. Vance, it's going to be interesting because people are seeing him as the future of the Republican Party. But Donald Trump's going to have to spend the next 4 years, should he win, looking over his shoulder, because J.D. Vance is an opportunist who at one point said that he had no respect for Donald Trump. He called him a racist, a rapist, said that he sexually assaulted people, and now he is bended knee in full support. So when you look at someone like J.D. Vance, who really, he seems to lack any moral compass. Anything that will gain him access to power, he's willing to say. And when you pair that with Donald Trump, a person who loves adulation, what you're looking at is, on one hand, kind of the growth of the MAGA brand. But on the other hand, you could see a real deviation. J.D. Vance is an isolationist. He is much more of kind of the buttoned up Joseph A. Banks version of MAGA, which in many ways is dangerous because it can pass through, suburbs. It can pass through the corporate culture in a way that Trump's harsh rhetoric can't.
J.D. Vance, more of a threat or worse for the Republican Party than Trump is right now?
He is, because he could manage to say a lot of the things that Trump says in a way that people won't be as offended. And that lack of offensive nature in the way that he's going to phrase things, the way he's going to communicate, will allow him to connect with voters that I think Democrats have been losing for a long time.
Michael, the New York Times reporting today that there's a whole lot of political scheming going on right now in the Democratic Party for Biden to step aside. Mega donors putting the pressure on Biden to get out of the race. What do you think the Democrats really need to do in this moment of crisis?
At the end of the day, this is not about Joe Biden. This is about democracy, and honestly, the entire Democratic ticket. Joe Biden, I personally do not think is the strongest person to lead that ticket, but that's because as a Democrat, we're fortunate enough to have a vast array of Democrats to choose from, but specifically the vice president, Kamala Harris. She would be the best option, but that doesn't look like it's where we're going. So you know what? As a Democrat, I've got to be all on board because the consequences of Democrats not winning is rolling back of reproductive health. It's rolling back of the Civil Rights Act. It's rolling back of things like supporting Ukraine and supporting our allies. So whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's Kamala Harris, Democrats need to know that voting Democrat is the only thing that matters in this election.
Michael, let's look at that assassination attempt on Trump. Now, a near-death experience can change anyone's life. How much of what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania would impact Trump? Are we going to see a new Trump, a leader who now truly puts country before politics?
Absolutely not. Donald Trump is who he is and will be who he has always been. We saw within 24 hours of the assassination attempt, him already tweeting about the courts and about the DOJ unfairly prosecuting him. But Donald Trump will forever see himself as a victim, and he will forever try to find ways to buy his way out of problems and to lie and cheat. That is who he is. And it is okay for Democrats to say that. That is not condoning violence. I'm glad that he's safe. I think anyone who participated in that assassination attempt should be prosecuted. But at the same time, it is fair for me to say that I believe Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. Those two things can both be true.
You called him a liar, and many people say that this election, 2022, is a choice between a liar or the infirmed. Who do Americans pick?
That's an easy choice for me. Joe Biden at 70% is 10 times better than Donald Trump on his best day. Donald Trump wants to fundamentally change our government. He tried to overthrow our government on January 6th. He still doesn't believe that that election was a fair election. Joe Biden wants to preserve our democracy. Whether you agree with his politics or not, he believes that our democracy as it stands is one that is worth saving. And so that's an easy vote for me to make.
Thanks, Michael, for your time, and we'll continue our coverage of the Republican convention taking place in Milwaukee. Day 3 today, wrapping up tomorrow, and we'll be covering it all.